Ever glanced out your airplane window during one of those tarmac delays and thought, what in the world is the holdup?
Yeah.
Well, chances are what you're seeing is the super intricate ballet of air traffic control in action.
Right.
And today we are going deep into that world of ATC. And to guide us, we've got a chapter straight from the FAA handbook on instrument flight rules.
Oh, wow.
It is packed with technical details, but don't worry, we're here to decode it all.
Okay.
And uncover some really fascinating insights that'll make your next flight even more interesting.
It's pretty amazing this system we rely on so heavily, it often operates invisibly to us, isn't it?
It really is, yeah. And I have to admit, all those acronyms and technical terms can be a bit intimidating.
Yeah, that's understandable.
Yeah.
But at its heart, air traffic control is all about communication. You know, pilots and controllers, they have their own specialized language, kind of a blend of standardized terms and procedures that ensure everyone's on the same page, literally.
So it's kind of like a secret code that keeps the skies organized.
Exactly. And it's not just the words themselves,
Okay.
but even how they're pronounced.
No.
They use the phonetic alphabet,
Right.
where each letter is assigned a specific word to avoid confusion over the radio.
Yeah.
So, for instance, the aircraft call sign N1212T would be spoken as November 1212 Tango.
November 1212 Tango, got it.
Right.
So every time I hear those announcements in the terminal, there's actually a whole dictionary behind it.
Absolutely. The Pilot Controller Glossary in the Aeronautical Information Manual, or AIM,
Right.
is their go-to reference. And here's something that might surprise you.
Okay.
The AIM is updated twice a year.
Wow.
Even seasoned pilots have to brush up on their terminology regularly.
That's fascinating. It's like a constantly evolving language.
Precisely because as aviation technology advances, new terms and procedures emerge,
Right.
and clear communication is paramount for safety.
Okay. So we've got this secret language, but who are the key players using it in this aerial communication network?
Well, unlike the image we might have of one person directing everything, it's actually a network of facilities working together seamlessly. You got your flight service stations, or FSS, which are like the information hubs for pilots.
Okay.
They handle flight plans, provide weather briefings, and even relay clearances from air traffic controllers.
So the FSS is like the pre-flight concierge, making sure everything is set for takeoff.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And here's a handy tip.
Okay.
You can actually file a flight plan by phone by calling 1-800-WX-BRIEF.
Wow. 1-800-WX-BRIEF. Now that's a number I'm going to remember.
Yeah.
But what about those other acronyms I hear, like TOWERS and TRACONs?
Yes. TRACON stands for Terminal Radar Approach Control.
Okay.
Think of them as the local traffic cops of the airspace surrounding an airport.
Okay.
They use radar to guide arriving and departing aircraft, ensuring they maintain safe distances from each other.
So it's like a carefully choreographed dance with the TRACON, making sure no one steps on each other's toes.
Exactly. And then we have the ARTCCs, or Air Route Traffic Control Centers, which manage aircraft once they're en route flying between airports.
So if the FSS is the pre-flight concierge and the TRACON is the local traffic cop, the ARTCC is like the highway patrol guiding planes across the country.
A perfect analogy.
I like it.
And throughout this journey, every flight is meticulously tracked, using a system that might surprise you in its simplicity.
Okay.
The flight strip.
Flight strips. Tell me more about those. They sound intriguing.
Imagine a small strip of paper
Okay.
containing all the essential details of a flight departure, point destination altitude, call sign, everything.
Wow.
They're generated from flight plan
Okay.
and are handed off from controller to controller as the flight progresses.
It's like a physical manifestation of the flight's journey, passed along like a baton in a relay race. But what's so special about these strips?
What's fascinating is that these flight strips are actually prepared and distributed to controllers about 30 minutes before the flight's scheduled departure time.
Wow, 30 minutes before. Talk about being organized.
It's crucial, because any delay in preparing these strips can cascade through the entire system.
Right.
Imagine one flight strip is late. That could potentially delay dozens of other flights. It's like a carefully choreographed dance where every step needs to be perfectly timed.
I'm starting to understand the immense level of coordination involved in this process. But how do they ensure a smooth handoff of information between, say, the tower and the TRACON when a plane is departing?
That's where those standardized procedures we mentioned come in.
Right.
When a pilot contacts clearance delivery, they receive an IFR clearance, which stands for Instrument Flight Rules Clearance.
Right.
and it contains all the instructions they need for their departure.
I bet those clearances sound pretty complicated.
They can seem overwhelming at first,
Yeah.
but thankfully there's a system to make sense of it all.
Okay.
Pilots use a handy acronym, CRAFT, to remember the key elements:
Okay.
clearance limit, route altitude frequency for departure control, and transponder code.
CRAFT. That's clever. It's amazing how pilots have these mental tricks to handle so much information.
Absolutely. It helps them organize the information quickly and efficiently,
Right.
which is essential in such a fast-paced environment. And speaking of transponders,
Yeah.
those little boxes in the cockpit play a vital role in helping controllers see the aircraft on their radar screens.
Right. Because radar alone can't provide all the details, like altitude, right?
You're exactly right. That's where Mode C transponders come in.
Okay.
They automatically transmit the aircraft's altitude to the controllers, ensuring everyone have a clear picture of what's happening in the airspace.
So it's like radar provides the basic outline.
Right.
And the transponder fills in the details, like adding color to a black and white picture.
That's a great way to visualize it.
Yeah.
And here's a fun fact.
Okay.
If a controller ever asks a pilot to ident,
Right.
pushing the ident button on the transponder
All right.
makes their aircraft's blip brighter on the radar screen. It's like giving their plane a little spotlight, making it easier to locate.
I've heard that before.
Yeah.
It's fascinating to learn what's actually happening behind the scenes. But with all this technology, do pilots ever question ATC instructions? Like, what if a controller assigns them an altitude that seems too low?
That's an excellent question.
Yeah.
And brings up a critical point about the pilot's responsibility.
Okay.
Even with radar and these sophisticated systems,
Right.
the ultimate responsibility for terrain clearance rests with the pilot.
Okay.
Terminal radar controllers might use unpublished minimum altitudes, called MVAs for safe vectoring,
Right.
but pilots are expected to cross-check those altitudes and speak up if something seems off.
So it's a partnership, a shared responsibility for safety. That makes sense.
Exactly.
But I'm curious, are all flights guided by these radar systems and MVAs?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Some flights, especially those operating below 10,000 feet,
Okay.
might utilize what are called TEC routes, which stands for Tower and Route Control.
Okay, TEC routes. Tell me more about those.
Imagine you're flying between New York City and Hartford, Connecticut.
Okay.
Instead of climbing to high altitudes and joining the busy airways, TEC routes allow you to stay lower, essentially taking a shortcut through the sky. It's like taking the back roads instead of the highway.
So it's a way to bypass the busier airspace and stay closer to the ground.
Precisely. And these routes are often used for shorter flights between airports within a certain geographical region,
Right.
allowing for more efficient travel.
That's incredibly efficient. But what about weather?
Yeah.
How do controllers and pilots navigate those unexpected storms and turbulence?
Weather is a constant challenge in air traffic control.
Right.
Controllers rely on weather radar, which can detect precipitation and display it on their screens.
Okay.
Older systems show weather as slashes for light precipitation and H's for moderate rainfall,
Oh, wow.
while newer systems use color-coded intensities to provide a more detailed picture.
I imagine seeing those colors appear on the radar screen can be a bit nerve-wracking for a controller.
Absolutely. And here's the catch.
Yeah.
Even with radar, there's always a slight delay in the data.
Mm-hmm.
So pilots need to be vigilant about rapidly changing weather conditions.
So even with all this technology, pilots can't just rely on ATC for a perfectly smooth ride.
That's right. They need to be aware of the limitations of the technology
Right.
and be prepared to request deviations around weather if necessary. Of course, those deviations aren't always possible, especially in congested areas. But communication is key in those situations.
It's amazing how much is going on behind the scenes to get us safely from point A to point B.
Right.
You mentioned earlier that technology is constantly evolving. What are some of the latest advancements in air traffic control that are particularly interesting?
One exciting development is the Precision Runway Monitor, or PRM.
Okay.
It's a new technology allowing closer spacing between parallel runways.
Wait, closer spacing between runways, doesn't that seem a bit risky?
It might seem that way.
But PRM uses high-update radar and specialized displays,
Okay.
along with highly trained controllers to maintain safety in these tight configurations.
So it's like taking a calculated risk to improve efficiency.
Exactly. By using PRM, airports can increase their capacity and reduce delays, which is a huge benefit in today's busy aviation world.
That makes sense, but with all this intricate coordination between facilities and new technologies being introduced, how do they ensure everyone is on the same page and operating smoothly?
They rely heavily on what are called letters of agreement, or LOAs.
LOAs, I've never heard of those. What are they exactly?
These are agreements that outline very specific procedures for coordination and handoffs between different ATC facilities.
Okay.
For example, an LOA might detail how a TRACON hands off an aircraft to the center as it transitions from the airport environment to the en route structure.
So it's like having a detailed playbook for every possible scenario to ensure seamless transitions between facilities.
You got it.
It's this meticulous behind-the-scenes choreography that keeps the entire system operating safely and efficiently.
This deep dive has already uncovered so much about the world of air traffic control. I'm starting to see it as this invisible network of people and procedures working together to keep the skies safe.
And we've only just scratched the surface.
Oh boy.
There's a lot more.
I'm ready for it.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the fascinating world of air traffic control.
Yeah, we've already decoded the secret language of pilots and controllers.
Right.
Explored the network of facilities that guide aircraft and uncovered the importance of flight strips and transponders.
It's amazing how much goes into something we often take for granted when we fly.
You're absolutely right, and it gets even more fascinating when we delve into the intricacies of how pilots navigate and land in challenging conditions. That's where instrument approaches come into play.
Instrument approaches, those sound pretty intense. What makes them different from, just landing visual? Well, in clear conditions, pilots can rely on what they see to navigate and land the aircraft. But when visibility is reduced due to fog rain or low clouds, they need a different set of tools and procedures to guide them safely to the runway. That's where instrument approaches come in.
So it's like having a backup system, a way to land safely, even when you can't see where you're going?
Precisely, instrument approaches utilize a combination of ground-based navigation aids and onboard instruments to create a precise path for the aircraft to follow. One common system is the Instrument Landing System, or ILS,
Right.
which transmits radio signals that guide the aircraft down a specific glide path to the runway.
So it's like an invisible highway in the sky guiding pilots even when they can't see the runway.
That's a great way to think about it, and each instrument approach is carefully designed and published with specific altitudes, headings, and procedures that pilots must follow meticulously. It's this precision that allows for safe landings even in challenging weather conditions.
It sounds like a high-stakes operation requiring a lot of skill from both the pilots and the controllers.
It certainly does, and sometimes, even with these precise approaches, situations arise where a pilot can't land immediately. Maybe there's a sudden change in weather or there's congestion at the airport. That's when holding patterns come in.
Holding patterns? Is that what I think it is, circling in the air?
A holding pattern is a racetrack-shaped maneuver that allows aircraft to delay their approach to the airport while maintaining a safe separation from other aircraft.
Okay.
It's a critical tool for air traffic controllers to manage the flow of traffic, especially during peak hours or when weather conditions are less than ideal.
I can imagine that being in a holding pattern can be a bit nerve-wracking for passengers, that moment when you realize just how much we're relying on the expertise of the pilots and controllers.
You're absolutely right. It's a testament to their skill and training that they can handle these situations so smoothly, keeping everyone safe while also managing the flow of traffic efficiently.
So holding patterns are kind of like a traffic jam in the sky, but with a much more organized and precise choreography?
Exactly. It's about maintaining order and safety, even when things get a bit chaotic.
We talk about how radar helps controllers track precipitation.
Right.
But what about those more extreme weather events like thunderstorms?
Yeah.
Those seem like a whole other level of challenge.
You're right. Thunderstorms are a major concern for aviation, and they require a different approach to air traffic management. They can generate intense turbulence, hail and lightning, making them extremely dangerous for aircraft to fly through.
So what happens when a thunderstorm pops up near an airport? Do they just ground all flights?
Not necessarily. Controllers have several strategies for dealing with thunderstorms. They can reroute aircraft around the storm, delay departures until it passes, or even hold aircraft on the ground. The specific approach depends on the severity and location of the storm, as well as the predicted path it will take.
So it's a lot of real-time decision-making based on the evolving situation?
Precisely. Controllers need to be quick thinkers, able to assess the situation and make decisions that prioritize safety above all else. Sometimes that means delaying flights, which can be frustrating for passengers, but it's always with the goal of ensuring everyone's well-being.
I'm starting to appreciate just how much responsibility rests on the shoulders of air traffic controllers. It's a job that demands constant vigilance and adaptability.
It certainly is, and not all weather challenges are as dramatic as a thunderstorm, heavy fog, for example, can also cause major disruptions, particularly for landings.
I've been in those foggy situations where you're on the plane and you can't even see the ground. It's a bit unnerving. How do they manage to land safely when visibility is so limited?
That's where those instrument approaches we talked about earlier become even more crucial.
Okay.
Some types of instrument approaches, like ILS Category 3, are specifically designed for low visibility conditions. They allow pilots to land with minimal visibility, relying almost entirely on their instruments and the guidance from the ground-based systems.
ILS Category 3, that sounds incredibly sophisticated.
It is, but it also requires specialized equipment on the aircraft and highly trained pilots and controllers. Not all airports have the capability to handle Category 3 approaches, and even then there are limits to how low the visibility can go before flights are diverted to other airports with better conditions.
So even with the most advanced technology, Mother Nature sometimes has the final say.
That's right, and it's not just weather that adds complexity to the equation. The different types of airspace also play a role in how air traffic is managed. We've talked about Class B and Class C airspace, typically found around busier airports. But there's also Class D, Class G, and special use airspace, each with its own set of rules and procedures.
Okay, that's starting to sound a bit overwhelming. It seems like there are so many layers to this system.
It is a multi-layered system, but that's what makes it so fascinating. It's this intricate web of procedures, technology, and human expertise that keeps the skies safe and organized.
Well, we've already uncovered so much in this deep dive, from the basics of communication to the challenges of weather and different types of airspace.
And there's still more to explore.
Welcome back to our deep dive into air traffic control. We've already journeyed through the secret language of pilots and controllers, explored the network of facilities guiding those flights, and navigated the complexities of instrument approaches and holding patterns. It's amazing how much goes on behind the scenes to make air travel so seamless for us passengers.
You're right. It's a testament to the skill and dedication of everyone involved.
And speaking of things that work behind the scenes, I think it's time we talk about one of the most essential tools in air traffic control.
Yeah.
Radar. It's like this invisible eye watching over the skies, right?
Radar is essential for controllers to see and track aircraft, especially in darkness or bad weather.
Right.
But it's not just one type of radar. There are different kinds, each with its strengths and limitations.
Okay, so radar is like the superhero of air traffic control, but with multiple superpowers. Can you break this down for me?
Of course, there's primary radar, which works by sending out radio waves and analyzing how they bounce back from an object like an aircraft. Think of it like shouting into a canyon and listening for the echo. That echo tells you something is out there.
So primary radar gives the controllers a basic idea of where an aircraft is, but doesn't reveal much detail.
Exactly. That's where secondary radar comes in.
Okay.
It relies on those transponders we discussed earlier. The transponder receives a signal from the radar and sends back a much stronger signal, providing additional information like altitude and aircraft identification.
So secondary radar is like getting a detailed report instead of just a faint echo.
Precisely. And then we have weather radar,
Right.
which, as its name suggests, is specifically designed to detect precipitation. It helps controllers see rain, snow, and those pesky thunderstorms we talked about earlier.
Right, because knowing where the storms are is crucial for keeping flights safe and avoiding delays. But you mentioned earlier that airspace around major airports can get incredibly busy. I imagine that managing all that traffic must be like a giant puzzle.
It is high-density areas pose a unique set of challenges for air traffic control. You have aircraft arising and departing at rapid rates, often operating in close proximity to each other, and it all requires incredible precision timing and constant communication.
It sounds like a high-stakes game of chess with controllers making strategic moves to keep everything flowing smoothly.
That's a great analogy to handle this. Aerial chess game controllers use advanced radar systems that can track hundreds of aircraft simultaneously, and increasingly they're relying on sophisticated computer algorithms to optimize traffic flow, predict potential conflicts, and minimize delays.
It seems like technology is playing an even bigger role in air traffic control these days. What are some of the future trends we can expect to see?
One major development is the shift toward Next Gen, which stands for Next Generation Air Transportation System. This program is modernizing air traffic control from ground-based radar to satellite-based navigation.
Satellite-based navigation, that sounds like a game changer.
It allows for much more precise aircraft tracking and more efficient routing. We can also expect to see an increase in automation. Artificial intelligence and machine learning are being incorporated into air traffic control systems to assist controllers with decision-making, predicting potential conflicts, and optimizing traffic flow.
It's almost like giving air traffic control a supercharged brain to help manage the increasingly complex skies.
Exactly. And then there's the concept of self-separation, which sounds a bit futuristic. It involves aircraft equipped with advanced systems that can maintain safe distances from each other without direct controller intervention, like a flock of birds coordinating their movements.
Self-separation, that sounds incredible, but wouldn't that be a bit risky?
There are definitely challenges to overcome before self-separation becomes widespread. It requires significant advances in aircraft technology and communication systems, as well as rigorous testing and regulatory approval. But the potential benefits are huge. It could lead to even greater efficiency, reduced workload for controllers, and potentially even smoother flights for passengers.
I can't wait to see how these advancements shape the future of air travel. It's really fascinating to think about all the intricate systems and people working together to keep us safe up there.
It's a truly remarkable system, and it's constantly evolving to meet the growing demands of air travel.
Well, this deep dive has truly opened my eyes to the complexity and wonder of air traffic control. It's a remarkable system that blends human expertise with cutting-edge technology to keep our skies safe and our world connected.
And it's something we should all appreciate next time we board a plane behind those smooth takeoffs and landings, is an intricate network of people and systems working tirelessly to ensure our safety and get us to our destination on time.
That's a perfect note to end on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of air traffic control. Until next time, keep looking up and marveling at the wonders happening above us.